Evening, everybody. I'm going to do this with the time I've got, seeing as though my mom's at Bible study and my nephew left about 30 minutes ago. And yes, this is being done in audio portion because I want to say I don't want to have to keep uploading the videos and stuff off my camera, and it kind of saves me the trouble of having to plug and unplug and whatever. Anyway. You can see down there, this is a review. I'm reading off Dan Drazens' review, if you will, of Sonic the Hedgehog issue 242. And I'm reading this currently off of my iPod. Yeah. The reason I'm doing it off the iPod is because, one, well, I don't have no ink for the printer. So, go figure. But anyway, this is his review for 242, which was released 4 months ago. Yeah, back in December. And he basically credits Yardley and Herms for the cover and says, anyone who saw the cover of Sonic Universe 45 may be feeling a bit of deja vu looking at this cover because a number of the elements of that cover are back again. Smirking Hedgehog, cute Tails, Eggman acting nasty. There are also some superstitious characters who'll get cut in due time. And continuing on what Dan Drazens says, and I quote, okay, why do they have an introduction page for a standalone story? And who wrote this thing? This isn't going to go well. And the title is Olympic Trials. And he credits the story to Ian Flynn, the art to Jamal Peppers, the ink to Terry Austin, the color to Matt Herms, lettering to Johnny Workman, assistant editor Vincent Lovo, editor Paul Kaminsky, editor-in-chief Victor Golick, doping inspector. Oh, I love that part. I'll provide a link to these in the description box. Doping inspector Mike Perithro, Sega Licensing, Aaron Weber, Anthony Kaku, and Cindy Chow. Looks like they added someone else to Sega representatives. And he goes on, and I quote, Tails is early showing up to an empty stadium, and when Sonic shows up, he immediately zones out from looking at the Olympic logo. Welcome to page 1. Sonic then acts like a total sports noob, confusing gold rings with gold medals. And then we cut to an unconvincingly disguised Eggman, Orbot, and Cubot, slamming home the plot with all the subtlety of a javelin in the eye. Then the fun and games really begin as the Chaotix, Vector, Charmy, and Espio are trapped in the skull, though rowing. At the hammer throw, Knuckles is cuffed, Silver is knocked out when his hammer explodes, and Big's hammer hits him with a knockout gas. On the track, meanwhile, Rouge, Amy Rose, and Blaze are zapped somewhere by transporters disguised as hurdles. We then get cut to the only 3 spectators in the stand, apparently, Cream, Cheese, and Marina. The only purpose for being here, to warn Sonic about this mess. As for Sonic, he's also on the field watching as Tails and Shadow are devoured by caterpillars doing the sandworm impersonation from Dune. Now Eggman takes off his disguise and goes into exposition mode. The whole point of this exercise is to capture Sonic's friends and then Sonic himself. It all comes down to a one-on-one action, Sonic versus Metal Sonic. This leads to a 2-page sports montage of Sonic vs. Metal. In all fairness, there are some cute touches. Sonic running rings around Metal on the basketball court. Sonic sweating the prospect of swimming. Does anyone else remember that Sonic is supposed to be a non-swimmer? Metal performing with the aerial silk. But the strain is taking its toll on Sonic as they move into the 100-meter dash, which ordinarily would be Sonic's best event. So what's a hog to do? Send out for a Deus Ex Machina Without any explanation whatsoever as to how it's supposed to work, Sonic merely touches the Olympic logo and voila, French being one of the official languages of the Olympic organization, he's recharged. And after that, it's a foregone conclusion that Sonic beats Metal and frees everybody else lucky enough to sit this one out. At which point, Eggman forgets about his scheme altogether, quote, no way I'm waiting for 4 years to do it all. No way am I waiting 4 years to do it again. In unquote, Sonic says. Fortunately for him and unfortunately for us, the Winter Games are only 2 years away. Yeah, you can kind of tell that Dan Drazens, who's in his 60s, is not too impressive with this. Continuing on, and I quote, now he's going to give it his scores. Now remember what I've said before. Anytime the way Dan Drazens scores this is by tens. So if you get tens all around, it's a perfect issue. If you don't, well, you kind of equal it to grades. Like a perfect issue is an A+. Maybe a 25 out of 30 is a 25 out of 30 is like a B+, a C+ is like a 20, a D+ is like a 15, and then of course a 10 is like an F. Go figure. Anyway, this is what he looks at for the head of the story, if I can get into this. He says, the Olympic movement, this is what he talks about with the head portion. He says, the Olympic movement dedicated to, quote-unquote, to contribute to building a peaceful and better world by educating youth through sport practices in accordance with Olympianism and its values, as it says at the International Olympic Committee website, is governed by the IOC headquartered in Drazens, Switzerland. The Olympic flag is the 5 interlocking rings of a white flag. Period. What's featured throughout this comic is one of the logos of the United States Olympic Committee, which is usually an American flag surmounting the Olympic rings. I know this is an American comic book, but it still felt needlessly chauvinistic. Chauvinistic, or whatever. The chauvinism on display is not only crass, it's wrong with regard to the outcome. In the 100-meter dash, Sonic's final event, Jamaica took gold and silver in the London Olympics of 2012, and the U.S. took the bronze. In Beijing in 2008, Jamaica took gold, Trinidad took silver, and the U.S. took bronze. In Athens in 2004, the U.S. took gold and bronze, while Portugal took silver. You get the idea. The U.S. may be good, but we do not own the Olympics, and only someone with a comic book mentality would think otherwise. It's not that, quote-unquote, the Sonic crew at the Olympic Games doesn't have entertainment possibilities. The Surreal Silk, which is the name for the ribbon used in floor gymnastics, would have driven Blaze crazy. Excuse me. Big would have done the weights with no problem, but his own weight would have made the parallel bars interesting. But it doesn't matter because Ian's gambit here was to similarly dispose of everyone but Sonic in order to set up a Sonic vs. Metal competition. You all remember that routine. It dates to when 8-bit dinosaurs such as Donkey Kong and Pac-Man roamed the earth. Not only does this bit have more white hairs than I do, but we get one of the clunkiest Deus Machas I've ever seen used to resolve the plot. Okay, Sonic and the gold rings, I get it. But how does that work with the Olympic logo? It never has before, and it's safe to say it never will again. But Ian needed to give Sonic a cheap win, and they don't come any cheaper than this. Well, quote unquote, Racing for the Stars, Sonic Universe 45, was madly simplistic. This is simply tired. Head score 3. Not a good start. The eye score. Jamal Peppers has to carry such weight as there is here, and he doesn't do a half bad job. Then again, Sonic and Metal Sonic isn't that tough an assignment. I hate to sound like a broken record, but once again we have good art in the service of a weak story. I score 7. Artistic score 7. So basically right now that's a 10. Heart score. This is the heart score. Seeing the allusions to gymnastics reminded me of the one character who would have been right at home in those events, Sally. She had the gymnastic chops built into her character going back to the animated Sonic the Hedgehog, and it gave her a way to hold her own and to match Sonic's raw speed with fine style. And that's partially why the two of them worked so well together. Yeah, I miss her. She could have been a game changer in this sorry excuse for a story. Not heart score, not available. So far for the main story, it's a 10 out of 30. In other words, it's a fail. But because it's got a backup story, the 30, if you will, increases to 60. So again, it's just the same way. You get a 60 out of 60, it's perfect. You get a 60 out of 55, B. 60 out of 50 is a C. 60 out of 45 is a D. 60 out of 40 is an F. But here's what he says about the backup story, Unfriendly Skies. And this is what he says about it, and I quote, "We get 3 pages of what's become the same old, same old. Sonic, Tails, Amy Rose, and T-Pup versus a number of egg swats mid-air, a spin dash here, a piku there, and missiles all around. That's how you kill 3 pages. It's also how we segue into 2 pages of Nicole reestablishing contact with Knuckles on Angel Island, using equipment that's seen better days. The purpose, 10-letter word beginning with Expo and ending with Titian. Cutting through the haze of a fragment tape loop, Remington reports that the Echidna homeland is under attack from the Death Egg/Dark Egg. Despite Knuckles' issues with his homies, this is all the setup he needs to get to be involved, and all that we're going to get. And this is what he gives for the head score of this. Remember, so far it's a 10 out of 60. It's not good. Not good. But this is what he gives. 10 out of 60, or mainly a 40 out of 60 so far. Not good. Well, it's a 10 out of 60. Can they make it better? We'll see. But this is what he says. And I apologize if this is in multiple parts. Hey, it's better than, having to walk up back and forth on a camera and have to say excuse me for a second and turn it off, turn it on. But anyway, this is what he says for the head portion of the backstory. This is a 5-pager, of which 3 pages are pretty much useless. Okay, maybe 2 pages. About the only thing new brought to the party after yet another aerial dogfight between the Tails Tornado and some egg swats is that the Echidna homeworld took a beating. The following 2 pages have Knuckles and Nicole and a guest appearance by the voice of Remington, and most of it is an attempt to bring the noobs up to speed of Knuckles' relations with the Echidnas.